Hey guys, this is Jess Reeves for AEP 880 Module 1. A little bit about me. I was born and raised in Norton, Kansas, in a very small town in northwest Kansas. I grew up helping out on our sheep operation and farm. Um, I enjoy weightlifting, hunting, shooting, cooking, reading, hiking, kayaking. I like to be very active. I included some pictures at the bottom of me being active and just being goofy because that's who I am. Um, I am the youngest of three daughters. I have a 15-year-old niece and a 13-year-old nephew from my oldest sister, and they all live in Washington State, so I haven't been able to see them for quite some time, unfortunately, due to COVID. And a 7-year-old niece from my middle sister, and she is in the bottom left picture. She actually lives with me part-time right now. She actually goes to school with me at Northern Valley. She is type 1 diabetic, so that way I am in the same school system. If anything is ever wrong with her blood sugars, anything like that, it's very easy to get that taken care of and keep a better eye on her. My second picture is myself and my best friend doing one of the things I love most, but unfortunately haven't been able to much lately, and that's traveling. This was us in Costa Rica. We were getting ready to take a trail ride on horses in the jungle. Highly recommend it. It was amazing. Um, I love to immerse myself in other cultures and really just soak it in. Um, like I said, I really enjoy hunting. So that's me, myself with my buck. I was pretty proud of him. And then right before COVID hit, I got to go see my sister in Washington State. And she actually lives really close to Seattle, so we went to Pike Place Market, and that's where I was with that beautiful bouquet of fresh foliage. And then that is a picture of myself and my three sisters. And we are standing oldest to youngest in that picture. So a little bit about my ancestry. I am Irish, English, and German. My father's family has a very long history in the U.S., being Irish and English. I actually included a picture at the bottom of Ireland with some sheep because how fitting. We're Irish and we ran a sheep operation in Kansas. And I also included a picture of the Mayflower for my father's family because after my grandfather retired from being a professor at South Dakota State, he got really into genealogy and found out that his family came over on the Mayflower. And fun piece of history about my family, um, they were the first person to be hung in the new land. So go us. We were doing great. My mother's family has a much shorter history in the U.S. My great grandparents came from Germany. And as far as family traditions, I wouldn't say we necessarily have traditions, but more values, which would be education, work ethic, and agriculture. So I included a picture of myself walking across the stage at my Kansas State graduation. The seal of Kansas State University is that's where I went, my grandmother went, my grandfather went, um, and a great university here in Kansas. I included a picture of myself with sheep because, like I said, agriculture has been a huge part of our family history. And then at the top of the slide, you'll see that's a piece of our ground on a creek. And then another picture of a pasture and a Kansas sunset because you just can't beat those. But I included several pictures from the farm just because agriculture is deeply rooted in our family history and it's very important to us. And I recently moved back to my hometown and I am starting to work on the farm and get it more incorporated back into the family after it has been all rented out for quite some time. On the bottom right, that is my grandma, my dad's mom, and her and I are extremely close. She is amazing and one of the strongest, most impressive women I know. I've been referred to as uh, Grandma Reeves Jr., and I am perfectly okay with that. I will take it as a compliment. So, the first video I watched was Some of Our Parts, and I really enjoyed this video as she spoke very eloquently and relatably. It wasn't like a video where you're just trying to reach ahead, reach above, and grasp what she's talking about. She said it takes 7 seconds for us and others to form initial judgments, which makes complete sense. You look at somebody in a suit and you think, okay, maybe they work in a bank. they work in some sort of business which is more professional. And if I see somebody in greasy jeans and a button up, I'm probably thinking, they probably work with their hands. We make those initial judgments on a day-to-day basis, and sometimes it can even be about safety. If we make an initial judgment that somebody's holding a knife, okay, that's I feel like that's an okay judgment to make. Um, However, these initial judgments are merely a piece of the puzzle that makes up the whole of who we are. So just because on the outside we look one way, does not mean that's how we look all the time even. So I thought that was a really great takeaway. And then this one I keep coming back to is overall, our triumphs and tragedies make up who we are. So if you saw me walking on the street, you would think I'm a typical Midwestern um, white girl. But if you knew some of my triumphs and tragedies, there's more diversity to me than what meets the eye. Preparing for cultural diversity resources for teachers, I just thought this was a great resource to come back to. I actually bookmarked it because I really liked how it previewed almost each article and what scenarios it could help with, especially for teachers. And hey, maybe we have a migrant worker family coming in and we need to know how to relate to this student. But I just thought it was a great resource of information. Um, and especially because I didn't know any better isn't a valid excuse anymore because we have the internet, we have all this research that just simply isn't going to cut it anymore. The challenges of cultural diversity video definitely felt like more of a class video, if that makes sense. It talked about Harmony Day in Australia. It's a day to celebrate the diversity. However, do we need a day or can we make it every day? And hopefully that's something we're moving towards. Prejudice is what can lead to discrimination. And then we have 3 expressions of prejudice: xenophobia, ethnocentrism, and racism, whether that racism is implicit or explicit. And how do we help combat those on a day-to-day basis? Past time to appreciate cultural diversity. I loved this video. I actually watched it twice just because I really enjoyed it. She used comedy to catch attention with her first Phasian comments, and I really related to how she found herself working harder just to be seen and appreciated. Um, and she also mentioned that 2/3 of people felt the need to conform to Western civilization standards, even though research shows that diverse working groups produce better results. Um, this one I should have capitalized, bolded it, underlined it. We can't put it on ourselves to manage others' expectations. I just thought that was very profound, and even outside the ethnicity view, this is a great, great statement. So recently we've been asking the who and what. Now we need to be asking the how and why. How and why do we break that glass ceiling, that bamboo ceiling? How and why do we help our cultural diversity? Some familiar characteristics throughout these resources that I found within myself. I recently switched to being a science teacher. However, I was an ag teacher. So being a female in a predominantly male field, previously I felt I had to prove myself over and over just to meet others' expectations and to fight that gender gap. And I still came short of their expectations because I wasn't a guy and I wasn't going to be a guy. I would get comments all the time of, well, how do you teach shop? Who comes in to teach your shop? Do you teach what? Can you weld? All the time. And I just felt like I fought that over and over and over again. Simply because I was a girl, and the older generation especially was not used to that or comfortable with that. We are not simply what you see on the outside, but we are made of the triumphs and tragedies that have made us who we are. That resounded really well with me, as like I said, you would see me on the street and assume common Caucasian white girl, Midwestern, but you would have no idea the triumphs and tragedies or where I've been and what I've done. So I felt that very deeply through these resources. Applying new knowledge and incorporating it into our school. None of this is necessarily brand new information to me. However, it's given me thoughts and ideas on ways to approach it in our school community environment. How can we incorporate this to our students? How can we make it better for our students? And then being a solid role model for students, that just because you see one thing doesn't make up the whole of that person, and we all need to be inclusive and appreciative of others to not only enhance our limited diversity, but to add to it in a fulfilling manner. Yes, we have limited diversity. We're in Northwest Kansas. We're a school of 50 kids, 9 through 12, but we can embrace the diversity we have. So the standard correlation, the standard where students will understand and demonstrate the capacity to use data to evaluate, design, cultivate, and advocate for a supportive and inclusive school culture. By analyzing the resources provided and reflecting upon them and how we can incorporate the positive attributes from embracing cultural diversity, we can become advocates in our schools for inclusivity and support. Um, while our school doesn't have much diversity, the diversity we have, we can incorporate that into our lessons. We can embrace it among the students. And just ethnic ethnic diversity isn't the only diversity out there. There's also your social economic status diversity and things of that nature that we can help be an advocate for our students of understanding and acceptance. The relevancy statement. This assignment was relevant to our learning because it opens up our minds to the nature of cultural diversity. It's a great springboard, it's a great starting point of ideas and reflection in our own selves and in our schools of, hey, okay, I see this in my school. Ooh, I wish I saw a little more of this in our school. This assignment improved my understanding because while I'm a white female in a rural area, I am far from a minority. I can still embrace those that are unlike me. And as well, it improved my understanding that diversity is not just skin deep, it's also through our experiences, through life as well, that helps us shape a culturally diverse culture. My personal reflection on this presentation impacted me by making me think critically about our school environment and where our diversity is so we can learn to embrace it and grow from it. It also made me reflect on the implication and influence I can have on my students in my very small rural community where I can help them by introducing them to my own experiences and helping to broaden their minds beyond their little corner of the world. I can bring my experiences wherever I go. These are things I've experienced. I can bring them wherever I go and present them to my students and give them a little glimpse of what more there is out there. So an example of this recently would be our experience with a staff member who lost his battle with depression. I know that's getting pretty dark, but it's a pretty resounding example of how we can be more inclusive because he was a very liberal person in a very Republican school, and at times it seems like you're trying to put a square peg in a round hole, and really, at times we were great at as a school embracing that and embracing our different opinions, and at times it you couldn't fully say anything you thought because you had to fit into the round hole, if that makes sense. Here are my references, and it was a great time. I'm very excited for this semester. It's my last semester of grad school, so I'm ready to kick it in the butt. Thanks.